If you're interested in making videos like this, then you've come to the right place. In today's video, I'll be taking you through my entire process from the initial concept to the final result, so that by the end of the video, you can understand exactly what goes into making something like this. So let's jump right in. The very first step is coming up with an idea. Now usually I do want to spend too much time on this because it's just kind of hard to explain how ideas come about. Usually I just get them, and when I get them, I just go for it. But if I were to try to describe where ideas come from, it would probably be a combination of things that I'm currently interested in and learning about at the time, and then also trying to think of what people might find interesting or useful to learn. So after I have an idea, the next thing I do is research to see if it is even possible, and also to gather resources that I'll need later. For example, for this video I needed to figure out if there was any code already written that I could use or adapt to what I wanted, and luckily I found some really good resources online. Next I move on to scripting. This is probably the most important part of the whole process, because if you don't know what you're going to say or do, it's going to show in the final product. And generally when I'm scripting, I like to have 3 sections of notes. One for the intro, one for the main section, and then one for the outro. Also within each section, I'll usually make sub-bullets of the things that I want to talk about so that I can stay on track while filming. And now we're on to the fun part, actually building whatever it is that I'm making. And since this is a coding related video, I'll be writing some code and I'll try to explain what I'm doing along the way. I'm using Python for this project because, well, it was my first language and I still think it is a great language for beginners. If you've ever used Python before, you'll know that the first thing to do is install it. But after that, we can open up our favorite code editor. And for me, that's VS Code. And then we can start creating files. So for this video, I created 3 files. One for the data structures and algorithms, or DSA, part of the program. Another file for the UI or user interface using Kinter. And finally, another file for the main app. Alright, so with those files open, let's start with the DSA file. This is the file that contains all the code that actually runs the program. First, I imported the necessary modules. In this case, I'm using the random module to generate random numbers. Next, I created a class called data. This class contains all the methods or functions that are needed to run the program. In this case, I have 4 methods. The first method is called generate. This method generates 10 random numbers between 1 and 100 and stores them in a list called numbers. The second method is called print numbers. This method simply prints the numbers in the numbers list. The third method is called selection sort. This method takes the numbers list and sorts it using the selection sort algorithm. The fourth method is called bubble sort. This method takes the numbers list and sorts it using the bubble sort algorithm. Now that the DSA file is done, I can move on to the Kinter file. This is the file that contains the code for the graphical user interface. For this program, I'm using Kinter, which is Python's built-in GUI library. First, I imported the necessary modules. In this case, I'm importing Kinter, and then I created a class called UI. This class contains all the code needed to create the GUI. In this case, I have 2 methods. The first method is called create window. This method creates the main window for the application. It sets the window title to data structures and algorithms, visualizer, and sets the window size to 800 by 600. It also creates a label widget that is placed in the center of the window. The second method is called create buttons. This method creates the buttons for the application. It creates 3 buttons, one for generating random numbers, another for sorting using selection sort, and another for sorting using bubble sort. Each button has a command associated with it. When the Generate Random Numbers button is clicked, it calls the GenerateRandomNumbers method in the Data Structures and Algorithms class. When the Selection Sort button is clicked, it calls the Selection Sort method in the Data Structures and Algorithms class. When the Bubble Sort button is clicked, it calls the Bubble Sort method in the Data Structures and Algorithms class. Now that the Kinter file is done, I can move on to the main file. This is the file that runs the application. First, I imported the necessary modules. In this case, I'm importing Kinder, and then I created the main function. In this function, I create an instance of the UI class and call the create window method. I also create an instance of the data structures and algorithms class. Finally, I start the Kinter event loop. This keeps the window open and responsive to events. After that, I can move on to styling. Now usually I do not spend too much time on styling because I do not want the video to be about styling. But sometimes it is necessary to make things look nice and understandable. So I did add some basic styling to make things look a little bit better. Alright, now that everything is built, I can move on to testing. This is the part where I make sure everything works as expected. In this case, I tested all the buttons and made sure that they generated the correct output. Now that the testing is done, I can move on to filming. This is the part where I record my screen and narrate what I'm doing. I use OBS to record my screen and Audacity to record my voice. After filming, I export the video from OBS and import it into Premiere Pro. Now it's time for editing. This is the part where I put everything together and make it look nice. So first, I'll add the video and audio clips to the timeline. Then I'll add some text and graphics to help explain things. After that, I'll add some transitions and effects. Finally, I'll export the video. And voila, we're done. Let's take a step back and look at what we've accomplished here. We started with an idea and turned it into a finished product. We researched, we planned, we coded, we tested, we filmed, and we edited. It was a lot of work, but hopefully you learned something new. Now if you want to take the next step and make your own video, then I challenge you to do it. Don't be afraid to start small. You don't have to make a masterpiece on your first try. Just do your best and have fun. And who knows, maybe you'll end up making something great. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.